When it comes to taxes, I hear some people in our state, in our wonderful state, say to me that, I pay a little more. I mean, I like the services that we have. I pay a little more. We need to be able to look those people in the eye and tell them, here's what the reality is. The reality is the state of Minnesota spends somewhere between $60 and $70 billion every 2 years. That's the reality. This year it might have been a little less because of the unallotments, but $60 to $70 billion. All right, you hear about the general fund at 31.6 this year, but with all the dedicated funds, it comes up to about 60 to 70 billion. Now, if we compare Minnesota to a state like Colorado, Colorado is roughly the same geographic size as Minnesota, and it's within 0.5% of the population. So you have two states that are roughly the same geographic size and the same population. Colorado delivers government for $40 to $50 billion every 2 years. What we need to explain to people in the public, and I don't think we can any longer with no new taxes pledges. I think those were appropriate at one time. But now we've got to get more detailed and we got to be able to articulate and communicate. Here's the reality, folks. Minnesota spends a third more than a state of similar size and population and similar quality of life. What's the problem here? The problem is not one of not having enough revenue. It's priorities. It's what are our priorities? What is government supposed to provide? What are we doing that we really shouldn't be doing as government? And who's going to make the tough decisions and say, this really is what we need to do? Do we really need to have a Department of Health and a Department of Health and Human Services? Do we really need to have a Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that once was a board within the Department of Health and has now grown into such a gargantuan bureaucracy that it actually employs 20 people in its communications department? Is that really necessary? All right? We must reduce the size of government, and then you got to bring down taxes, because I tell you what, it's not a matter of not having enough. It's a matter of not making the decisions that need to be made as far as what our priorities are as government and what the people in Minnesota expect.